because ultimately the journey that we travel, it's all going to be based on a decision that we make at some point in time. There's a decision every time we do something, whether you think it's subconscious or conscious, there's still a choice there. And learning how to tap into that to create some more positive results.
It's the Health in the Real World podcast. It's time to start the show with Janke as your host. Here to give you everything that you need when it comes to fitness strategies. We keep it simple and easy. It's your roadmap to get healthy. You don't need equipment and you don't need a gym. Just the right strategies to get you fit and trim.
Welcome to the Health in the Real World podcast. I'm here today with Dai Manuel. Dai, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Chris. Great to finally meet. I know it's a little bit of communications through LinkedIn and emails and all the other stuff, but it's nothing beats the face-to-face. So it's great to be here.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Great. Yeah, I'm glad to have you here. So you've done a lot of stuff. Pardon my lack of vocabulary word stuff. You've done some stuff. You did a TED Talk, right?
Yeah.
You have, I like the tagline on your website. You're a lifestyle, what was it? A lifestyle guru or
mentor?
Health and lifestyle mentor. Talk about what you do a little bit, how you help people with.
Oh, geez. Well, I guess it depends on what vertical we're speaking to, what groups, because, I've been in the fitness and wellness space now. Gosh, I'm in my 26th year. My entire adult life. This is what I've been doing, just sort of trying to help people get out of their own way, sometimes get out of their own head or sort of go from the head to more of the heart, find that internal drive, that motivation it's in all of us, right? And you need to take one step further and find that inner inspiration to really want to do the things that we want to do and gain that self-belief, because changes happen whether we like it or not. It's just sometimes we feel kind of like the victim of change rather than the champion of change. And so I like to help people find that perspective. And then more than that, lean into that in a big way to create massive results and typically transformations in their own life or their businesses. I have a corporate background as well. I was a co-founder of a very large retail chain in Canada, fitness equipment, accessories, supplements, and apparel. And after 17 years, I realized that my passion wasn't in it any longer, nor was I feeling fulfilled, and wanted to make some changes. So 6 years left that industry to pursue more so what I'm doing now. But, my entire adult life, I've been doing something in the wellness space. And I imagine I'll be doing that till the day I die, to be honest, Chris.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at too. It's funny, before I realized that you could actually earn money just helping people get healthy, fit, like you talk about adopting healthy mindsets, things like that. I was reading a lot of books on retirement. I mean, I was like 22 years old and I was reading books on like how to retire and what's the best strategy to get out of the game by 65. And I don't either. I don't want to retire either. It's like, why would I retire? This is like, what would I do? Retire. And then how I'm going to spend my days working out. That's basically what I'm going to be doing. So let's just,
I love it. I love it
now,
Chris.
Right? So it's awesome. Yeah. So Dai, what do you tell somebody? This is a very general question, so you can go whatever direction you want with it. Sure. But what do you tell somebody who's maybe not healthy? They divulge to you at a party or something that they really just want to get healthy. Like, what are the first couple steps that you would sort of recommend to that person?
Well, I usually ask questions. I think questions are a great way to seek understanding, but also connection, right? And to truly serve people. I always find that I ask a lot of questions. Sometimes they're rhetorical because I do ask them online, but I always hope that someone's on the other end and hopefully either thinking the question, maybe asking themselves the question, or maybe they're ready to engage and maybe even post a comment or two, acknowledging this is how that question shows up for them. And because it's often the questions that we're not asking that have to be asked for us to find the clarity to know what next step makes the best sense for us in our given situation, wherever we find ourselves. And what I mean by that is, I get what it's like to feel like you've lost health, and almost like losing your keys. It's just like, I know I've been healthy before, I just don't remember where it went, and we got to rediscover it and search it or find it again. And it's there. It's always there.
But it sounds like a good story. So what what
I
happened
was
to you
morbidly
where
obese
you?
as a teen. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I was a really big kid. And from the age of 9 to 14, I kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But because I was, I learned to deal with a lot of negative emotions and sort of that inner dialogue. I was able to give it its moment in time by feeding it quite literally, as well as metaphorically. But I literally was eating a lot of foods very high in calories, very poor in nutrition value,
Right.
as well as I wasn't moving my body very much. I was playing video games and watching movies. So I was getting dopamine in lots of negative ways, right? And so, yeah, got to a point where I was more afraid of staying as I was than I was of the idea of changing. And that was the day I was ready to make some changes.
And then, so what was that process like? Because obviously the mindset comes first. And then once you had that mindset where, like you said, you were more afraid of staying, eating and watching TV, playing video games, then you were just getting started. What was that process like? Was it a couple weeks, couple months, couple years? What did that look like?
Well, I sort of throw this back on people. So those that are listening or watching this right now, and Chris, you can probably relate to this. It's health is always there. It's always there, right? And I think it is one of those qualities that we just take for granted until we really start to feel the challenge.
Until it's gone, right? Yeah.
It's like all of a sudden it's like, whoa, what happens? And it's those sort of moments where we're like, whoa. And in that moment of whoa, which sometimes comes from a doctor saying, hey, just got your results back, and whoa,
right? Yeah.
Or sometimes it's us just looking in the mirror and realizing that, holy crap, who is this person looking back at me? Whoa, I don't know this person. I don't like them. And is this me? And that was the end of the spectrum I was at 14. And I remember getting out of the shower at my dad's place, and all those negative feelings were already there. All right.
Yeah,
like the negative emotions, the negative self-opinion, the idea of isolation. Like my mental health was already very, very challenged at this point. It matched the poor state of physical health that I was in. So it's, the two are very much tied together.
Absolutely.
And it's really hard to stay positive and upbeat if you're struggling from a health and confidence standpoint. So here I was at 14, looking at myself in the mirror after I got out of the shower. And rather than staying in the shower extra long, which was my hack, I used to do that. I'd stay in the shower extra long, turn it up really hot. So when I would get out of the shower, that mirror would be covered in condensation, all fogged up. So I would not have to see my reflection.
Hey, good strategy.
It was a good hack.
I get it. Yeah.
And here I was this one morning though, being rushed by my dad because it was our weekend with him. And I remember getting in the shower because he was pounding on the door, like, hurry up, we got to get going. And man, I remember toweling off and just, I could see the profile to my right. And for some reason, as I'm toweling off, I turned and locked eyes and
didn't like what you saw.
Oh man, I remember doing the scan down to my chest, down to my belly, walking there on my belly, then scanning back up to my chest, my very large man boobs, and then seeing that I just toweled off, but now was covered with water again. And as I came up and locked eyes, like I was just uncontrollable sobbing, like just ugly cry. And it was in that moment, it was like having an inner dialogue that enough's enough, because it was very clear in that moment, because it would been building to this point. To answer your question, Chris, like, is there a moment in time when we recognize that it's like, oh, time to get healthy? It's like, I think it's always there. We just are pretty good at distracting it, putting it to the side. At least I was really good at that. I could distract myself with something else in the moment to just not have to even acknowledge those negative feelings or thoughts patterns that I had, and just keep on doing what I was doing. But here I was, all of a sudden I was like, hey, if I don't address this right now and deal with it, I know that by the time I'm 18, only a few years from now, at that point in time, it ain't going to be better than it is right now.
Right.
And that's a scary place to be. And I was like, well, what's my alternative? Well, my alternative is like, why don't I try to get healthy, try to change this? And I'm like, that is really scary too, because I have no idea what to do. I had a 14-year-old boy who never played any sports. I used to pretend that my asthma was bugging me, so I just didn't even have to do phys ed class because I didn't want to do physical education because I'd have to get changed in a change room. And I knew what that was like. I get teased by the other kids. I'm not taking my shirt off in front of you guys, like, no way. I know what you do every time I do. And so like, man, it was a mess, right? And here it was. I was just like, okay, well, I'm less afraid of the idea of changing than I am of the idea of staying as I am. So I guess.
Yeah, and that's what it takes, right? And you were doing, right? You were getting good at what a lot of people do, myself included. You saw the check engine light on your car dashboard, and you put a piece of tape over it, you know, fogging up the mirrors, right? You just didn't want to see it.
That's right.
I got really good at that in college. You know, they say the freshman 15. By the time I graduated, I had maybe the college 30. And I not only was I bigger, but I was just very out of shape. And I remember it. This is when it really sunk into me, you know, comparing myself to sort of an objective measurement. My friend Brian, I went down to San Diego to visit him at his school. He went to UC San Diego, and we were doing just like a simple workout, right? Something they just did for a warm up for surfing. And we were doing bear crawls on the beach.
Yeah.
And I made it maybe 10 feet and I stopped. And he was just a little bit in front of me, but he stopped. He looked at me, and the way I still remember his eyes burning into me to this day. And he just said, "Yeah, you kind of let yourself go, didn't you?" And then he turned around and kept going. And I was like, "Oh man, that just burned." That's the only thing he said about it. I decided right then and there, I'm getting back on this wagon, and I'm putting my health back in order. So there are those moments, and you remember when you were 14, looking in the mirror. And just having that, you know, turnaround moment. It's incredible, these moments that sort of drive our lives, and we just can literally change direction. And now here you are decades later, and me too. And it's our profession, you know, and we help other people get to their health and fitness. So that's an amazing story. I really like that.
Thank you. And just so everybody knows, it took 20 months. So I made that mental decision to make some changes. But it took 20 months for me to fully realize the lifestyle. Yeah. What I mean by that is where I didn't have to think about it anymore. I was just doing.
Yeah.
I was just being. And that's why I like to let people know. Some people are like, well, how long does it take to form a habit? And everyone's got an opinion about this. Everybody, right? 21 days, 6 months, 12 weeks. I mean, you know what? It takes as long as it takes. Don't worry about that. Just enjoy the process every day. And don't worry, it'll get there. You'll get there. One day you'll just be like, this is just what I do. You won't even be thinking about it. It won't even be a question anymore. It won't be like, should I work out today? It's just like, I do it. I just show up. I do it. I move my body with some purpose, get the positive endorphin rush, and it makes everything just that much better, you know? And it's awesome.
It's easier to work out than it is to not work out. It gets harder and harder to skip a workout because it just doesn't make sense anymore. It's like, well, I'm an active, fit person. Why would I not work out today? It doesn't make any sense. And, you know, you talk about habits. Just to throw my story in there, because you said 20 months until you really solidified the habit. And, you know, somebody might be listening to this who's like, oh my God, 20 months, that is a long time. But, you know, most likely you're going to be around in 20 months anyway. You can be here healthy, or you can be 5 steps closer to the grave. You know, my personal story, this is a couple of years after I lost the weight. But I got really underweight. This was really interesting. I started playing around with all these different nutritional theories and going just very extreme. I was raw vegan for 10 months and I got so tiny. I'm 6'1", but I got down to 155 pounds.
Dude, I'm 6'1", but I'm 210. I could not imagine being down at 150-ish.
No way.
Oh,
and see, now
cut my legs off.
Oh, I know.
Oh man.
I know, right?
Wow.
I rest right now. I'm comfortably at like 195, and I'm still like, you look at me like you'd be like, oh, that guy's kind of skinny. You know, I'm lean, right? 195 at 6'1", but I was 155. So I wanted to gain some weight, some healthy weight, not college weight. So I said, it was kind of a long-term proposition. I said, I'm going to join the nicest gym in town. I was already a trainer. I already kind of knew what I was going to be doing. I'm going to join the nicest gym in town. So going there is like a reward, a vacation. And I said, but I made a deal with myself. I said, all right, you're going to join. It's worth it. But if you don't go, you're not cashing in on your investment. So you need to literally go every single day. And the first day that I missed, I quit. I went 14 months straight. I didn't miss a single day.
Wow.
I missed one day and I quit. And I said, all right, I'm done. I made a deal with myself. I'm done. And then, so this is the reason I did this, because I knew I was going to make it at least a year. Yeah. And after a year, I was comfortable saying, I'm good. I hit my goal. I'm going to join a gym that's a little closer to my house. And I was making all these deals with myself, which was was kind of a weird, like I could probably write a whole book on just this deal I made with myself. But I wanted to gain 10 pounds of muscle, and I gave myself a year to do it. And I gained about 14 pounds of muscle in that year. And so I think the reason I'm telling you this and the audience this is because once you have that drive, like what you got when you looked in the mirror, what I got when my friend told me that my bear crawl basically sucked, is I just knew. I knew that I was going to gain the muscle in a year. And once I lost that, that's when I stopped going to the gym. And so I just thought that was interesting. Anyway, be it
I love
for what it is. So that was a fun kind of story, but
it's incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible, Chris. I mean, it's amazing what happens when that switch flips, right? Like but it's tough too. Like I think back to some of my biggest shifts in my life, and there's been a number of them, 3 that are very distinct to my memory, and that was the first one that's really comes to mind. It was that milestone moment where it was like, yeah, had I not made that commitment or switch, that flip of the switch, like my life would be very different. I mean, honestly, would I be here speaking to you today? Probably not, Chris. I mean, I just know myself well enough that had I not made that decision at that time, life would be very different today. Yeah. And that's how impactful these seemingly simple moments in our lives, right? Like just because it's just a moment, but it's a moment where we can really say, okay, this is my moment where I can wake up and do things completely different than I've done them to now. And 100%. I don't know what's going to happen. And there's a lot of trust that has to happen within oneself, but it's the victories that we get along the way that I think need to be celebrated. And I think about myself 3 weeks into that decision, I was not going to join a gym, just so you know. 14-year-old boy, morbidly obese. I'm like, I'm not going in there. There's mirrors, there's steel. They got the girls, doing their step classes right over there in the studio that we will see me work. I'm like, no way. And so I begged my dad to buy me a mountain bike, and he did. He bought. My mom and dad said, no problem, we'll get you a bike. We can tell that you're ready. Like this is not going to be some fad. They could just tell that there was something in me. I was ready to do this. That's awesome. I just started cycling every day, just every day. And it was 3 weeks in that I remember there was this hill that I came to the very first day of my ride. I did the same circuit every day. Yeah. Same circuit. And right early on in the circuit, about 10 minutes in, there's this massive hill to go up. And I remember the very first time coming to that, I got a third of the way up and it was like everything froze. I was just like, I'm not moving. And then boom, off to the side, fall off the bike. And the guy that I was at that time, day one, like this sucks. I'm so out of shape. I should just turn around, coast down this hill and just go home. But I was like, that's what the old guy would do. I'm going to just walk to the top. So I walked the bike up the other 2/3, got on my bike to the top and continued to ride. Well, every day I came to this hill. 3 weeks in, I finally ascended in one go without stopping all the way to the top. 3 weeks. Like, trust me, the moment I ascended and just came over that lip on the top and realized that I just did that without stopping was like the biggest win I think I've ever experienced in my life.
Yeah, that's huge.
Like, but it was that all of a sudden made it possible for me to say, okay, change is possible. And I'm the one that's making this happen. Yeah. And that's what I meant by this idea of victim of change, because I really did feel like I was a victim. To now I'm becoming a champion for change. I'm like, yeah, I want change. I love change. And I can help make change happen, Right. And so that was that little switch that flipped for me 3 weeks in. And that's what's carried me a lot, especially with some of the biggest challenges I've faced in my life since then. It's just going back to that memory that change is possible, and it's possible if I want it to be possible, And so, yeah, anyways.
That's awesome. So, I wanted to say this as you were talking, sometimes when you said you were morbidly obese, I don't know how much extra weight you had on you, but
BMI was over 40. Just put
over
it in that
40.
perspective.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is, okay. Yeah. So how much did you weigh?
I was actually only about 15 pounds heavier than I am now, but I was also
you were
6 inches shorter.
Right. Yeah. Got it. So a 40 plus BMI. And so I just have to say this because as an older, healthy person now, you're very lean. You said you weigh 210, you're 6'1", 210, probably very solid muscle. And you're telling this story about how you could only make it up a hill, a third of the way up a hill. And I gotta be honest, there's something in my brain that was thinking, No, like I couldn't imagine it because we're so visual, right? I'm looking at you now and I'm like, there's no way that this guy had to stop 1/3 of the way up a hill.
Right,
So that's
right.
the thing. Is this you? Is this a picture
Well,
of you?
so I wrote a book, and it's called The Whole Life Fitness Manifesto. And I know this sounds like a shameless plug, but I got to show the photo because there's only 2 photos I could find of me back at that time. Because I had this way, like, because you got to remember too, I'm totally dating myself. I'm older than Google, okay? But back then, mobile phones didn't have a camera function on it. I mean, they looked like bricks, right? I remember.
No, they were like this big, and dude, they were huge. Plug them into your car, right?
Oh man, they were just obnoxious, right? And so I remember I had to ask my mom. I was like, "You got to find the photo of me as a kid." There's like this one, and I've got like a Washington Redskins shirt. Oh, it's pretty small right now. You can't really see it, but on my website I got the big version. And
okay, that's you on the left?
Yes. And my arms crossed, and I'm sitting down, so you can't really get the full expression. But I was a big kid. Okay, I was a big kid. Then that's. Yeah. Anyways, it is what it is. But I know a lot of people have that challenge, and I think that's an interesting thing to note because I used to shy away from ever sharing my story. Like, especially when I got into fitness to begin with, I was like, no one's going to want to work with me if they know my past. That was my belief system. Like,
and what the truth 20s, is, right? It's probably the exact opposite, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I relate to your story so much, and I can imagine that the people that you work with and attract to you are people that find inspiration as well as motivation from that story.
Yeah.
But also the fact that they know that you've experienced that. So what better person to shine a light on the road in front of them than someone that's already walked that path, right?
Right. And who stayed on the other side for now several decades, right? And then the other half of my story too is I was the age that you were when you made your shift mentally. I was 14 years old. I bulged a disc in my lower back. All I was doing was stretching. I was just bending forward, trying to touch my toes. And that affected, well, I was in pain, like a low level pain for almost 10 years. Wow. And as I was looking for something other than surgery that would help me out. And that was one of the things that led me to becoming a trainer. And that's the type of training I do. It's a lot of core, a lot of flexibility, full range of motion, body weight, predominantly, things like that.
Yeah.
And, I'm always telling people, the older I get, the more credibility I have. Because when I was helping people get out of back pain when I was 24, they're like, yeah, easy for you, punk kid. Yeah. And, I just turned 41 a couple weeks ago. And like you, I'm older than Google. And I remember when you had to go to the library to search stuff, right? There was no like, how do I, or better on your phone, how do I, man. Oh, there's the answer in 1 second. Having gone through that and knowing not only intellectually book knowledge, this is how you lose weight, but all right, this is what my experience was. It took me 20 months. This is what was hard about it. These are the emotions I felt. This is all, these were the types of people I wanted to associate with and all that. So that's awesome, man.
Dude, Chris, I commend you for your change and just your ability to simplify that whole concept, because I usually will tell people, I'm like, I hold this up. You know what this is? It's
a little plastic tomato.
Plastic tomato, yes. But I have it here as a reminder that I remember explaining to my kids, the difference between wisdom and knowledge.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing this in an interview. It must have been about 10 years ago with this soccer coach in the UK. And I forget his name now, but he was talking about this difference between knowledge and wisdom. And tomatoes, general knowledge is that they're a fruit. Tomatoes are a fruit. Well, if we go off general knowledge, if we're making a fruit salad, it would make logical sense to put a tomato in there.
Sure.
Like, you do that one time, you'll realize not a very good idea. Fruit salad and a tomato in it, not very good. Well, knowing that is wisdom. Okay. Like, it's that practical application of the knowledge, right? And how it results for us. And so I often will think to myself, okay, tomato. Let's talk about how do we actually implement this so we can see the benefits that we want to see. And I thought you explained that so well, so it just reminds me of that metaphor.
I love that difference between knowledge and wisdom. That's a good segue. I want to go big picture with you now. So let's say you get hired by, let's say, a university or a corporation to give a motivational speech for them. Give us a 1 to 2 minute kind of highlights of what that speech would look like. Motivational speech for whoever it is. Pick whatever direction you want to go with this.
Yeah, so I do a lot of these already. So as of late, I've been getting asked to speak quite frequently on mental health resiliency. And I'm all about a 2% solution. So learning how to invest 30 minutes every day. So it's only 2% of every 24 hours. So you can be mentally healthier, or as I like to say, more mentally resilient. And so that often just deals with regular practical tips and tricks and hacks that one can implement into their life every day to see some positive changes in the area of mental health. And when people say, well, what does mental health mean? Well, I'm like, how do you think about yourself? How do you speak to yourself, right? How do you look at the world? I mean, mental health influences all of that. And it ultimately determines what we do today, as well as determines what we're going to do 20 years from now. Because ultimately the journey that we travel, it's all going to be based on a decision that we make at some point in time. There's a decision every time we do something, whether you think it's subconscious or conscious, there's still a choice there. And learning how to tap into that to create some more positive results, that's what gets me most excited. So that's one of the things. Then I also speak to the 3 most critical questions that one should ask themselves anytime they want to change. 3 questions. And it's the same 3 questions I've asked myself every time I want to make big changes in my life. And so I speak to that fairly regularly. And yeah, so those would be the big highlight ones. And then there's other more practical stuff. I speak a lot on the business side too. I help wellness entrepreneurs make more money so they can impact more people online. And but that's all through word of mouth referrals, just people that know my background and history and what I've done, and that are looking to do the same. So yeah, 2 different audiences there. But
for sure. Yeah. And there's some overlap too, I'm sure.
For sure. Yes, definitely.
So you mentioned though, the 3 questions you ask yourself when you're looking to make change. What are those 3 questions?
Can I do this? If I do this, will it work? Is it worth it? And more importantly, that 3rd question, is it worth it, is a general way, especially when I'm working with corporate teams and stuff like that. Like we're speaking about organizations or companies, it's more general. But when I'm talking to one-to-one individuals, I'm like, reframe that 3rd question and ask, am I worth it?
Ooh, I love
that one. Not very easy to answer, I'll tell you. And that's where the mental health and that inner dialogue really comes into play, because I find it's easy to get started. It really is. I don't mean to downplay this, but it's easy to get started. We see a lot of people get started.
But January 1st, right? New Year's resolution.
That's exactly my point. And lots of people know how to get started, but they don't necessarily know how to keep going.
Yes.
Nor why should they keep going. And I like to try to connect that, help with that. So when you're starting, you have all this momentum and inertia, and it doesn't ever leave you. It keeps you and carries you. And so, yeah, anyways, lots of cool stuff there.
That's great. Awesome. That's good. I agree with that 100%. So, well, we're going to wrap up. Dai Manuel, thank you so much for joining me. How do people get in touch with you? Website, social media?
All of the above. Yeah, I was going to say I'm most active. If you want to have a conversation, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn are my 3 primary platforms for carrying on conversations with people. And if you're looking to learn some more and get some more useful resources, my website's, I've been blogging and creating content for over 14 years now. Nice. And on my own website, daimanuel.com. And just check it out. Lots of resources. Be cautious though, because I've been told that it can be a bit of a time zap, because there's a lot of content there, and one piece leads to the next piece, leads to the next piece. So I'm not going to apologize for it. It just is what it is. But It's a great place to at least start building your awareness and hopefully some of that belief to lean into more changes. And my name being very unique, that's my handle on every social platform I'm on, just Dai Manuel.
Nice. Well, that's great. Well, thank you again so much for joining me today on Health in the Real World, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
I hope so, Chris. Thank you for putting this out to the world and allowing me the opportunity to be here as a guest. I'm truly honored, and I'm looking forward to continuing to follow your journey along, and hopefully one day we get to meet in person, man. And I'm looking forward to these borders opening up. But
yeah, absolutely.
Thanks again for the opportunity.
Thanks for listening to the Health in the Real World show. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below. Visit mycorebalance.com to learn more.